All right, so hi again. This is going to be the respiratory system notes part 2B, just a continuation of the first section. What we're going to talk about now is the trachea, commonly known as the windpipe. Okay, so here is the trachea. All right, here's our tube. It consists of sort of C rings. They're cartilaginous rings. They're made of cartilage, and they're in the shape of a C or a U. Okay. The posterior side of the trachea is where those rings do not connect because that backs up right up to the esophagus. Okay, the esophagus is a flexible tube. It needs to be flexible to allow for food to pass down into the stomach. So these hard rings, okay, at the front of the trachea, and in the back there's a space to allow for that to go right up to the esophagus, okay? So as it enters the thoracic cavity down here, it's going to branch into the left and the right bronchi. So bronchi is plural for bronchus, okay? So if we take a look on the left side, we're going to have the left bronchus, but if we looked at both of them, we said the left and right bronchi, all right? The trachea is lined with ciliated mucous membrane and goblet cells. So these goblet cells secrete mucus to help protect the trachea and to stop any microorganisms or any small particulate from going down there as well. Okay, and there's 20 C-shaped rings of hyaline cartilage that also helps to prevent the trachea from collapsing. That's a good thing. All right, so we can take a look at a cross section of the trachea. We can see these C rings, okay, the hard cartilage, and then you can see back here where it's a little bit more flexible, okay. It's made up of pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium. Whew, that's a lot to say. That lines the lumen. These are cells that line the inside of the trachea. Okay. And let's talk about a tracheostomy. A tracheostomy is when a hole or an incision is created in the trachea and a tube is inserted, okay, to allow breathing or ventilation to occur. A ventilator can be connected to the incision, all right? So this happens if someone is choking. So in a crisis situation where something is lodged in the larynx or in that part of the throat, and air cannot get into the lungs, and they're not able to get it out with the Heimlich maneuver, an incision could be created and a tube inserted so that person can be ventilated, and it allows for air exchange. This can also happen, and you may have seen people, and I'll show you on the next slide, who have a tracheostomy, okay? And this is a more permanent situation where it's possible that they had some sort of malformation of the larynx from birth. It could also be caused from the larynx or any other structures being removed from cancer or any other type of disorder that might cause that, or injury. And so they're able to breathe through the tracheostomy. They're breathing through the hole. And you might have seen on commercials, people have to cover the hole in order for voice production to occur so that air isn't escaping there before it reaches the vocal cords. And sometimes people are not able to speak because maybe they've had their vocal cords removed. All right, so we're going to look at the bronchial tree, okay? So we can see here it splits into the left and right lungs, okay? And the bronchus, okay, this tube here, is going to begin the tree, and as it continues on, it's going to get smaller and smaller until we reach the alveoli. So you can pause here. I would read through the different segments of our bronchial tree, and I'm going to show you on the next page a good diagram that's going to take us through it. All right, so we have our conducting system and then our respiratory system. And in the later slides, we'll talk a little bit more about that. So here's your trachea, and then just below the trachea, we're going to see the left primary bronchus. Okay, and again, it's going to split into the left and to the right. All right, we have the secondary bronchus. The tree is getting a little bit smaller as we go. And then we have the tertiary bronchi. You can see as they branch off. As we get closer to the alveoli, we have the bronchioles, all right? And it leads to the alveolar sac, which include these groups of alveoli. Hopefully you guys can see that. Here we go. All right, and here's an image, a dyed image of the bronchial tree. And you can see off of each bronchi how those branch out. All right, eventually leading to the alveoli. So these are really important with gas exchange. Obviously, they're vital to it. These are air sacs at the end of the bronchial tree. They provide a large surface area for gas exchange, whether that's taking in CO2 and releasing that back out into the environment, or whether it's taking in oxygen and transferring that into the capillaries to then be transported to the systemic system, okay, and the rest of the body. So during the gas exchange, the oxygen diffuses through the alveolar walls. These guys are 1 cell thick, okay? And the CO2 diffuses from the blood to the alveoli to then be expelled as waste, all right? And they're surrounded by capillaries. So you can see capillaries and